So the next part of the program is Father of the Year. This is a very difficult time because every one of you know darn well from the hug you just got that you're special. And each one of you is the Father of the Year. Unfortunately, with this process in this committee, we choose a few fathers, seniors mostly, parents, to be honored tonight. So, at this time, those seniors I've been talking to, if you would come forward. Their dad doesn't know anything about this, so they're getting up and Dad's going to say, uh-oh. I'm not going to introduce them. They're going to introduce themselves, and they're going to say something about Dad, and if we have something to give to the dads, and Dad would come up at the time. We'll take a group picture eventually over here, but Drew's up first.
My name is Drew Willman. I'm a senior here at CBC. My dad is Dave Willman. I want to start by saying my dad has made a lot of sacrifices for me in forms of his time and money. Particularly in middle school, I needed help with reading, so he sent me to Churchill. Churchill is quite an investment for any family. A major takeaway I have learned from him is no matter what I do, to give my full effort and attention. Doesn't matter the task, like a project around the house or a sport I've played, he has taught me not to cut corners, even if it saves time. Do it correct the first time so that you don't have to go back a second time. I love you, Dad. I appreciate everything you've done for me.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dominic Morlow. This is my brother Joe, so we're kind of splitting this. I'm kind of going to do the same thing as Drew. I'm going to talk about what my dad sacrificed for me. Not to mention all the sleepless nights, not just as a kid, but now staying up till 12 after partying on Friday nights. But he's also sacrificed his luxurious life of being retired. He retired about 5 years ago, and he's still staying up till 12 and getting up early in the morning to wake me and him up, and he's still doing bills and all that stuff. He sent me and Joe to Churchill as well, and that's, if you've ever been to Churchill, it's no minor feat. So he also gives up his time to come and watch us for lacrosse. He just does a lot, and you really can't wrap that all into one 30-second little speech. So to wrap it all up, thank you, Dad, and we love you.
Hey guys, I'm Jamie Lucas. My dad is Ted Lucas. For as long as I can remember, my dad has always been the person in my life who's pushed me to be my best. Even when he is busy with work and is constantly out of town or just having some stressful days, he's always put our family first. And that can be through supporting my academics, through helping with soccer. I can't tell how many practices I've gone to, how many games that he's driven me to, or how many tournaments that he's sacrificed a business trip to come take me to. He's just always been there for me, even on the weekends. He does some little TED training camp thing that sometimes I don't like, but it was always there for me. Even though soccer's over and I'm moving away to college next year, I always know that I'll have Dad in my life, and I always love him.
What's going on, guys? My name is Justin Tabb, and my father is Cadet Tabb. I just want to let y'all know that there's nobody well deserving more to get this award than him. He's been through a lot over the years. Like, I can't even explain how much. I don't even know how much, but that's just how. Like, talk about health, just having like depression, just getting through everything, still having a smile to this day. That's just a blessing to me, and that's just amazing to me. I always will know like where I got my fight from. I always know how he was positive and how I can like stay positive with him, because there's some nights that where I think I'm not even like great enough to get through what I need to get through for like soccer, school, or anything outside. I just think whether if we're at a sporting event or any other event or just at home, just talking on the couch, just me and him, he just taught me to be like a great man, like in general. He's just been supporting me through the journey, and I can't thank him enough. Because I know some days he doesn't feel like it. Some days that he might be like sick, or he might be in the hospital just going through it. And some days he might not feel like it, but he still does it. He still works hard and do for it. I can go on and on about how much I love him, but Pops, come get your award.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ryan McGraw, and for the students, yes, my dad is that one leadership teacher guy. Not only is he a leadership teacher, but he's been my leadership teacher 3 times at CBC. You might be wondering, what's it like having your dad as a teacher? Or is it weird to have your dad also be your teacher? And I would wholeheartedly respond with, yes, it's very weird. Kind of awkward, but occasionally really helpful. You know, when I forget my lunch money, need to get some food, or I forget to bring money for a hoodie, you know, he's there. I can always just walk up to his room. But all jokes aside, he's so much more than that. He's also my mentor, my former coach, and most importantly, my dad. Whether it's sitting together on football Sundays, rooting on the Super Bowl-bound Kansas City Chiefs, or me trying to listen to one of his stupid dad jokes for the 5,000th time that day, or even walking away as you try and teach me another leadership lesson. You've always been there for me. You coached me as a kid, not only through baseball, but through life. And for those reasons, plus a lot more, I present to you my father of the year, my dad, Sean McGraw.
We have an important guest, of course, our speaker, but he's on a tight schedule because, as you know, he's related to hockey, associated with hockey, and this is a special week in St. Louis for hockey, so we have to get him out the door at a certain time. So we're going to change the itinerary up. I'm going to introduce Joey and then have him speak, and you're going to take some Q&A, we're going to take some questions, and then I'm the one that cut him off. Before I introduce Joey, I'd like to introduce the proud parent. Sam here is a graduate of ours from 1970, his dad, and then Marianne. Marianne obviously is not a graduate, but is very much a part of the CBC family, so we welcome you. Joey is a graduate of CBC from 2004. During that 4-year time that he was at CBC, they had 3 state championships and 2 undefeated seasons. Joey played for the Junior Blues 2 seasons, and at that point he had a national championship in 03-04. He went to Northeastern University. In his time there, he had 34 goals and 60 assists. Here's a few of the acclaims that he had as a Rookie of the Year, all academic team. Probably got that from Mary Ann, right? Most improved player, all Hockey East, 2nd team, and most valuable player at Northeastern as well, while he's there. As we know, he has a professional career where he played for the Penguins, the Coyotes, and also the Red Wings. Joey's career, unfortunately, was ended in 2015 with a concussion. And he moved on from there. As we well know, he's in his second year in the booth for the St. Louis Blues as a broadcaster and a color analyst with Chris Herbert. I found out at the table that he also, just this August, was inducted in the St. Louis Amateur Hall of Fame. His wife is Brianna. They have 3 children, Summer, Harper, and Bodie. And I found there's a young girl on the way to be born in March. As I mentioned, he's a graduate, Dad is a graduate, his brother Charlie is a graduate from 02, and then his brother Sam, Jr., is a graduate of ours from CBU, which is down there in Memphis, where Brother David Hood kind of departed us to go to, not to the university, but to the high school. So, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you a graduate of ours, a distinguished graduate of ours, Joey Vitale.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to have you do my eulogy one day. That was really nice. You're right, my wife is home and she is pregnant with our 4th baby, or else she'd be here. At some point, I probably should stop getting her pregnant. Because that way she can enjoy these evenings with me. I was talking to your principal, Seymour, here. I've been talking to him all night, just for you students out there. I'm trying to convince him that it's really icy out there. Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. It's a pleasure being here. It's a lot going on in St. Louis, obviously. It's a great time to be a St. Louis Blues fan, to be a hockey fan of the sport. And I think of what's happened over the past year, and I think Game 7, which we probably all have something we share in common with what happened last year for the first time in franchise history. I think we all will at some point look back on that Game 7 and be like, I was here on Game 7, or I was there. I was with this person on Game 7. I guess I'll start at the beginning. Why did I choose CBC? I am here. I want to talk a little bit about CBC. For me, anyway, I love the color purple. I don't know what it was. Something about it. Ever since I grew up playing hockey at Afton, I always wanted to wear the purple and gold. And as an artist, loves the smell of paint, I love the color purple. I get to CBC, and right away I felt a sense of belonging. I felt a part of something. Freshman year, I joined the football team. Coach Ryan, Coach Miller. I went from me to we. I felt as a part of a tribe. I felt connected. And everyone on that team, we all had nicknames. It was terrific. A fun year. I think we were undefeated that season. And everyone had a nickname. I was the middle linebacker. I just had a hunt and tackle mentality. That's all I did. And the middle linebacker position, the coach gave me the nickname Intelligent Predator. So I was the intelligent predator on the football field. Meanwhile, in the classroom, my teachers refer to me as the hopeless moron. But it's fine. So CBC gave me a sense of belonging. CBC gave me my challenges. I had a lot of challenges at CBC very early on, and I'll stick with football just for a second. My challenges, my fear, really could be summed up in 2 words in my time at CBC, and those 2 words were Bob Shannon. Now, no one cheered, and that's a good thing, because you don't know who Bob Shannon is, and that's a really, really good thing. Bob Shannon was a football coach for me. Some of you out there may know him. He's kind of between the kids now and the adults who used to be here with Haggerty. Bob Shannon was a 6'4", big man, big gap in his teeth. He coached high school football in East St. Louis, and he pretty much just told it how it was. And he is this big giant of a man, and he's watching moms drop these kids off in these big SUVs, and boy did he have fun with us. I remember him saying to me when I was playing football, he'd be like, Vitale, you getting soft, is what he always say. Vitale, you getting soft. And I would just kind of sit there and kind of frown my little lip. And he said, you get no sympathy from me, son. That's what he's always would say, you get no sympathy from me. But he taught me at a very early age that there's no sense of feeling sorry for yourself because no one else really feels sorry for you. And that was a hard lesson, but that was a challenge. I also had a challenge when I quit football. When I didn't play starting my junior year because I wanted to focus on hockey. I'll never forget one coach, the assistant at the time, come up to me and saying, Joe, no one had ever from St. Louis has made it to the National Hockey League, and I think you're making a big mistake. I didn't like that very much. To me, those were the challenges, the constructive challenges that kind of carried my time throughout CBC. It taught me pride. CBC, being here, taught me a lot of pride. John Jost was my high school hockey coach. The pride in putting on your purple and gold jersey, not only representing yourself, not only representing your teammates, but representing everyone that's come before you. And to me that meant a lot. Pride in the details, I think, something I learned in CBC that has carried me through life. A lot of people out there, you guys remember Ray Barr? Ray Barr, the mean dean, as we call him. Ray Barr was my dean there when I was there, and Ray Barr would just bark at guys all day long, just bark at guys all up and down the hallway, never stopped. I remember, I think it was like a junior, I finally hit puberty, had a little peach fuzz on my chin, I thought I was the man. Walking up and down the halls, and Ray Barr would say, oh, Mr. Vitale, I like your new beard. And he'd be like, go shave that thing off in my office. He would just rip us. He had a mirror, rusted razors, the whole bit throughout his office. And he would shave, get cut, miserable. But he taught you to take pride in those things, little things. Taught you to take pride in a good, firm handshake, something that I take pride in now as I try to teach my kids that. The pride in a shirt tail. Ray Barr would just non-stop, all day long, would yell at guys about a shirt tail. Does your dean do that today? I don't even know. Is that a real thing? Big deal. Tuck your shirt tail in, tuck your shirt tail in. Never stop, all day long. I'm thinking, Ray, relax, man. It's just a piece of clothing. I don't understand the problem here. But his mindset was, now looking back, kind of a cool thing. Ray Barr would always teach us to tuck your shirt tail in, because when you tuck your shirt tail in, that means probably you're taking pride in your appearance. And when you take a pride in your appearance, you're probably taking pride in your academics, which means you probably take pride in your athletics, you take pride in your values, you take pride in your relationships, and ultimately you will probably take pride in your life. So if you want to take pride in your life, start by tucking in your shirt tail, what Ray would always say. I think that, CBC has taught me a lot of grace from Liz, Ray's former secretary. She was like the mother when our moms dropped us off, the sweetest lady. She passed a few years ago. As some of you may know, Liz, I remember getting sent to Ray Barr's office, and she would look at me, and she's like, oh, honey, not today. I was like, I know, Liz, I'm going to be in trouble. She goes, give me that pink slip, and she'd take it, she'd sign it, and I would walk back to class, and it would say Ray Barr. She learned how to forge his signature. Swear to God. That's who she was. She had a smile that could move mountains, and I learned that unmerited love from Liz. I also learned that unmerited love not only from CBC, but probably a good time to talk about my mom, the most beautiful woman in the floor here tonight, Marianne Vitale. And I wanted to say that if there was other women here, just let you know that, Mom. But my mom, to me, represented that unmerited love. I think we all as kids, and whether as teenagers admit it or not, I think we need unmerited love. And I think we need that grace. I would play games, and whether I scored 6 goals and we won, or I was a -4 and we lost, I'd come to the lobby, I'd see my mom, she'd embrace me, she'd hug me, and she told me she loved me. And to me, that was so precious to me, because it showed me that love as a parent is something that you can't earn. Love, like grace, is unmerited, it's unconditional. No matter what you do, it's there. And I learned that from the best example of my mom. My mom would cut oranges, slice apples for every playoff game, from freshman year to senior. We always went to the state championship almost every year, and every playoff game, she would cut the apples, cut the oranges, she would get Gatorades from Sam, she'd put them in the fridge, she'd get them on ice, she'd put them in coolers, and basically she'd just bring them to the rink. And that's where my dad would take over, where my dad would wheel in these coolers. My mom did all the work. And then everyone would come in the locker room, my dad would come in and be like, "Oh, Mr. Vitale, oh my God, this is great, thank you so much." He's like, "You're welcome, guys." We'd go in the lobby, and all the kids would be like, "Mr. Vitale, those oranges, those apples are great, you know." My mom would never say a word. She never needed credit. She just did it. She did it because she loved me, and she loved this school. That really stood out. Of course, the other thing that stands out, the fact that my dad never corrected those kids and saying that, "Mom, no, I'm just kidding, Dad." My dad who's here tonight, you know, CVC taught me a lot of great things, and it certainly taught me this trait, but I don't know if I could have learned this trait any better from my father, and that trait, that value was certainly hard work. My dad runs a construction business here. I remember growing up and seeing him showing up in his dirty work boots, you know, waking up at 4 a.m., putting in 15-hour days, coming home dirty. And I just remember as a kid, I think we all can, you know, recognize this as kids, but we all want to be just like our dad. Whether you're a professional football player or a concrete worker, it doesn't matter. I saw my dad come home, he was dirty, I loved it. I wanted that. I wanted to be that. I wanted to work hard. I wanted to put in those hours and support my family. I remember that he taught us at a very young age what work ethic was. And I remember at the age 10, I started working in the yard, picking up trash and doing different things. I mean, 10 years old, I would spend every summer, when school was over in May, till about August, when school resumed. Most kids were playing sports or hanging by the pool or whatever. I would spend that time working in the yard. You know, pulling lumber, pulling nails from lumber, cleaning 6-foot steel forms in the hot July sun. But my dad taught me that that's where it begins. You know, you look at a building, he always used to say, and a big skyscraper, and as beautiful it is, and as shiny as it is, and as convenient it is for all these people going up and down, the most important floor of that skyscraper is what you don't see. It's underneath, it's the foundation. He taught me from a very young age that the foundation of your life will always have to be hard work. Nothing will ever come easy. You must work hard, and things take a lot of time. And that's just a fact. And I think that a lot of times now with the technology, social media, we feel as kids, and me myself sometimes too, we think there's shortcuts in life. But there are no shortcuts. There's laws of life that are so sound and so stable, and the work ethic in your foundation will always have to be paramount, because that is the most important thing, and without that, the building certainly falls. CBC taught me a lot of self-awareness. I think the world has a lot of self-love right now, which I really like. A lot of self-love, maybe a little too much self-love. But CBC taught me a lot of self-awareness. I'll never forget playing hockey here at CBC and playing my sophomore or junior year, first game of the season, and it's in August, and I come across the blue line, I turn the puck over, it goes the other way, and someone from DeSmet scores a goal against us in the first period. Nick Caracello, who's our assistant coach at the time, takes me aside, grabs my cage, brings me into his tight. He says, "Joe, all these guys on the bench, they hang out in the pool all summer long. All summer long, they lather their bodies up with lotion, they check out babes. That's all they do. You pour concrete. He goes, chip it in and go hit somebody." And I looked down at my gloves, I took my gloves off, I'll never forget it. I remember my hands were all calloused up. I remember thinking he was right. Absolutely, 100% he was right. And I think the next shift, as I remember, I stepped over the boards, went out there on the forecheck. I think I clotheslined someone from DeSmet, got a 3-game suspension. So there's balance, of course. That's something else CBC taught me, is balance. But, you know, I learned a lot about leadership from CBC. Just a couple things before I open up to you guys. I'd like to hear from you. I learned a lot about leadership and what qualities bring out the best leaders. I learned them from CBC. The first guy I learned from was, of course, Jesus Christ. I learned about Jesus that he was, and I learned more and more as I dove into his life. He turned the world upside down, and one of the ways he did it was from leading. I think you think of leaders like Napoleon. I think you think of leaders like Winston Churchill, King Tut, whoever you want. Most of the leaders we think of look to be served. And I think Jesus kind of turned the world upside down in the sense that instead of looking to be served, I think he looked to serve, which is something that I learned very early in my career at CBC. The other part of that, which is I believe is humility, was empathy. Humility and empathy, I think leaders do such a good job. I think maybe the two of the best characteristics of a leader. So if that was from Jesus and the humility, the empathy I learned, not from Jesus, but maybe from a teacher. Mr. Delpha, is Mr. Delpha still here? No, Mr. Delpha's moved on. Some of the dads out there may have had Mr. Delpha. He was like this religion teacher. You get a beard to see some guys shaking their head yes. He wore Birkenstocks. He had like Bob Dylan posters all over his room. Mr. Delpha was amazing because I'll never forget the image, and talk about a leader. So it's cafeteria time, it's lunchtime, and all the students line up. And I don't know how it is now, I'm assuming it's the same way, but teachers were allowed to go right to the front of the line. Go right to the front of the line, cafeteria, get right in, get your food, get out of there, and that's just the way it was because, and rightfully so, they got to prepare, they got a class to get work, they have grades, they got a lot going on other than the students. They go right there and they go. Mr. Delpha always stood at the back of the line. He always just stood line with the students every single day. And I remember halfway through the season, halfway through the year, I remember asking him, Mr. Delpha, why do you stand in line with the students? Every other teacher goes up to the front. You're allowed to do it. And something he said to me that I literally have never forgot, and he said, oh, that. He said, that is for my status, and that's not for me. That is for my status, and that is not for me. And that is something that I will never forget, because throughout my career, I try to always remember that, to destroy your ego and to realize that how people treat you isn't necessarily who you are, but what you've done, and to make sure you always treat people based off of who you are and not what you've done. CBC has taught me to remain with God's Word, the reminders to have God close in my life. We as students, I'm sure you guys saw the way we started prayer here. We always start with prayer every day. You always start every class with prayer. You always end every class with prayer. You end every day with prayer. And I never realized it as a student, the impact that would have in my life. It kind of like brushed over my head as a student. But looking back, I'm so glad that I did that, because with everything I did here at the school, helped me realize that with everything you do, you need to consider God. At least consider Him. You may not be fully bought in, but if you consider Him, it's a great foundation. My valley in my life happened, as Michael Jordan said, back in 2015, my 10th year pro. I get in a fight with Calvin Miller of the Boston Bruins. I break my temple, I break my jaw, I collapse my orbital floor, I lose my reach, and he pretty much knocks me out. I thought my contact was loose in the penalty box. I go to reach for it, and all I felt was the top of my eyeball. I knew at that point I probably will never return to the sport of hockey. From there, it was a 2-year recovery. I would call it a 2-year pitfall, 2-year valley. Valley at its worst. I hit what I thought was rock bottom. And I think that a lot of us, we see rock bottom. We feel rock bottom at some point in our lives. I think what happened to me, at least, was that there's rock bottom, and then there's a cavity just below rock bottom. And I had certainly gotten there. But when I was there, I fully gave up, turned my life over to God, and decided this is your life, and I'm completely out of control. And the miracle that happened because of that decision has changed my life. From that pit underneath rock bottom that I let go of, that's when God's grace officially flowed in my life and turned my life around. St. Augustine, who is one of my favorite saints of all time, he said it best in the sense where our hearts are restless until we rest in the Lord. I want to repeat that because it's one of my favorite. Our hearts are restless until they rest in the Lord. Take it from me, guys. I've been to the top. I played in conference finals games, just came close to the Stanley Cup final, played with the best players in the world. I got the great hot wife, by the way. I made the big leagues. I made the millions. I got the cars. I got it all. And every time I got there, I looked around and I said, I thought this would be more. What am I missing? Something's missing. And to me, what was missing was God's presence in my life. Our hearts are restless until they rest in the Lord. I was speaking to Wayne Gretzky this morning, of all people. I don't know if you guys heard him or not. But, and some kid asked him, as a Q&A we were doing on stage, some kid asked him, who was your favorite coach growing up? And his answer kind of struck me a little bit. He goes, my favorite coach was my dad, Walter. Walter Gretzky, still alive today, was probably the biggest influencer into Wayne Gretzky's life. We have such a responsibility, I think, as fathers to bring up our kids, to have a relationship with our kids. I have 3, 4 on the way. They're all in the age of 9. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know exactly what it's like raising a teenager, although I've seen a lot of you dads by the bar all night, so I kind of look like that. But I will say that, and I know from my experience how much it is important for these kids and for me and for my kids to have that relationship with you guys. It's the most important thing for these guys. So I would encourage you to open up for that. In closing, before I open it up to some questions and answers, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit. But in my experience, again, I don't know a lot about fatherhood. I've only been doing it for 9 years with 3 kids. But my experience from what I was as a kid, I can remember what I would want in a father or mother from what I remember as a child. I remember at Afton Ice Rink on Friday nights, my dad standing in the corner in his purple jacket, goofy, ugly purple jacket. I remember my mom showing up when I woke up from my concussion sophomore year after getting knocked out in football season. I remember her presence there. I remember my wife in all my glory of playing, and certainly in my valley, she saved my life. I don't necessarily remember what was said or done in those moments, but I remember that they were there. They were there. And to me, 90% about being a good dad is just showing up. 90% of being a good dad to me is just showing up. So I want to applaud you guys tonight for showing up tonight and being with me. Thank you very much.